Hey, y'all. Welcome to another episode of Disrupt Your Now, where I and my co-host Rachel Garrett Mercer talk to a different entrepreneur every week about the hurdles of being an entrepreneur. And this week, we're going to do something a bit different. We are talking with Dane Ferguson, a very talented musician that I've known all his life. And the thing is, though, most people don't think of artists as being entrepreneurs. So I wanted to have Dane on to talk about the hurdles that he's jumped through, and he's still, all the different things that he's done to keep learning and growing and building his own business, which is his musical career. So, Dane, welcome to the show, and tell them a bit about yourself.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it, Lisa.
Uh-huh.
From a small town, Halifax, Virginia. I grew up surrounded by music.
Yep, y'all. All three of us on the screen. Yep.
Y'all, yeah, we have to throw a y'all in there occasionally.
That's right.
But yeah, small town thing. Grew up with music in the household. I mean, my mom and dad, they're music lovers, so it was always around. There was always a piano or a drum set or whatever. So it was a natural thing for me to pick that up. And with a small town, there's not a whole lot to do. So it's music or fishing or hunting or whatever. So I inevitably gravitated towards that and just spent time making the most of it that I could in that small town. And then, moved away to Norfolk to try to make something happen there with school and whatever. So I think once I left at 17, it was about the pursuit of trying to make something happen with it, like actually happen. So we're on that journey now. It's been a long road in between.
I remember when you were in Norfolk and we came over and visited, and of course, then you were in New York and then Richmond and now LA, and people don't realize it's a career like everything else, and you do whatever it takes to build your career and build your craft.
Absolutely.
I have to tell y'all a story on Dane. I think you were probably 4 or 5, because this would have been like 1993, and I called your mom and we were talking, and I hear this elaborate piano music in the background. I'm like, who is that? And she's like, oh, that's just Dane, just really off the cuff. That's just Dane.
Casual.
And I was like, what? She goes, yeah. And I mean, it was like it could have been an album on, Rachel.
That's amazing.
Radio. It was so funny. I mean, you were just going to town on the piano, and she was just so offhand about it because Dane just was a natural, or is a natural musician. You can basically pick up pretty much anything that you play, or play anything that you pick up, right?
That's kind of how it's always worked. I've never had much luck with horned instruments and trumpets, saxophone, stuff like that. Anything wind related, I've kind of had some trouble with. But if I can make a sound with it, I can play it. Like I have that ear thing, so most of my music comes from being able to listen to it and then replicate it myself. So there's never been any kind of notation or learning from sheet music. It's just I hear it, which has allowed me to be able to pick up and learn lots of new instruments.
Yeah. See, I'm jealous of that. I come from a musical background, but I do not have the wonderful play-by-ear skill.
Can you read music though?
I can read music, but the play-by-ear thing, not so
much. That's a totally different thing.
Yeah, I can read music too, but yeah, it is. It's totally different. People who can just pick up anything and play it, it's really awesome. And Dane is a singer-songwriter too, y'all. Very talented too. Most people can either play an instrument or they can sing, or maybe they can do both, but very few can do all three. And I'm not saying it because you're my second son. I'm saying it because it's true. You are very, very talented as a singer-songwriter. Just as talented as you are art and playing.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
What do you think you get the most joy out of, or is it all about the same, the writing or the
I mean, I'd say it's probably the writing and the studio aspects of it, because I mean, most of the stuff outside of the groups and the other side projects I participate in, I write it, produce it in my own home studio. I do all the engineering and stuff. So I think those moments where I'm able to lock myself away and just kind of allow it to flow out are the most rewarding moments.
Yeah, that's
I like
cool.
the creation.
Yeah, and you probably get kind of like in a Zen state. You don't even think about what you're doing. It's just happening.
Absolutely. Time kind of disappears, which is one of the most fun aspects of it. I love it.
Well, and the great thing about writing is that you know, if you're a writer and other people end up recording your music, you can end up making royalties for years. A lot of times you don't even know it. Rachel, my cousin, is a writer, and he owned a production company back in the 70s. And he had a number of hits, but one of his biggest hits was recorded by the former lead singer for the Temptations, his biggest solo hit after he left. But my cousin still has people recording that. And usually he doesn't even know. It's like all of a sudden he'll get new royalties. You know, just like, hello, you know, it's out there happening for you. So that's really cool.
That's amazing.
And that was something I didn't really realize until a little bit later in life. So that's become sort of a new goal that has attached itself to the overall objective. Writing for other artists would be so amazing. So, I mean, I've got notebooks full of stuff. So if I'm ever given the opportunity to write for others, I'd love to.
Yeah, well, and the thing with that though is most of the time you're not real, from the people that I know that are writers, Buddy and other people, a lot of times they've already written it and somebody just runs across it, or somebody hears you play it and they know somebody and they go, oh my God, this song would be perfect for you. I have a surprise, Dane.
Yeah.
Mel. Yeah, hey Mel, this is Dane's aunt for those of y'all who don't know. And you're right, Mel, he is very handsome.
That's a wonderful lady and a star real estate agent. You need a house bought or sold, you go find her.
That's the truth, isn't it? That's awesome. Yeah, I'm so glad to have you on here, Mel.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Look, hello, 4 people from Halifax County.
Woo!
Now Rachel's over near Nashville now, so technically she's not here, and you're in LA, but still 4 people from the same
roots. It's about the roots.
We got the same roots.
Yeah, I know. Y'all people better watch out because we're going to take over the world.
Oh, little Halifax County. That's hilarious.
I know. All right, I want to rewind and like backtrack to.
Let's do it.
When did you first realize that you wanted to pursue music for a career? You were in high school or earlier?
Oh, God, no, probably younger than that. I mean, if I'm totally honest, like I was playing piano and stuff from such a young age. And I think the first performance scenario I was in would have been like at church after the services. I'd always run out of the service, go down to this little vacant room with a piano in it and play. Yeah. And that was like what I looked forward to at the end of every Sunday, is to sprint down there and do that. And then it got to a point where I'd have a couple of people sitting around the piano and like noticing that. I mean, I was probably 6, 7 at the time, seeing people gravitate towards you having the ability to do something else. And like, I don't know, it was an interesting thing. And it kind of always instilled this desire to perform and to share the art with people. Yeah. I mean, at that time I was doing piano recitals too. So
yeah, it's exciting, isn't it? Because you realize you're making other people feel good.
Yes.
And it's also, I don't want to say selfishly, but it's also a charge, you know, to realize you're making them feel good, but they're feeding your energy. I got another surprise for you.
Let me guess. I knew it. I was like, I know who that is.
Yeah, because that boy is smart. I don't know who he got that from, Spencer.
No idea. That's funny. Love you, Dad.
No. Okay, Spencer's from Halifax County too, obviously, because he's Dane's dad, but except he's near Richmond now. So this is just a reunion, isn't it? Or like a revival. We need a big tent over everything.
I had no idea what I was getting into.
Sure didn't. But okay, so you realized really young that you loved entertaining people.
Yeah, I didn't really know in what capacity. I mean, that's developed and changed so many times over the years. But I knew that in some way, shape, or form, music was the thing that brought me a joy that was inexplicable. And even at that age, I recognized it and knew that it was something I had to keep doing in some way.
That's so cool, because I have to say most people, even people my age, don't have anything that gives them that joy. Seriously, nothing that they can point to that they feel like feeds their heart, you know, other than their family. And not to downplay that, but most people are just so not in touch with themselves. And that's one thing that I do when I work with entrepreneurs who are unhappy in their business. And that's why my show is called Disrupt Your Now. And the book I have coming out later this spring is called Disrupt Your Now, because that's what I want to do, is help people figure out what is it that's missing in their life that's not fulfilling them, and let's figure out a way that they can adapt their business so that they are feeling that. And I just love that at such a young age you knew what you wanted, Dane.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean you knew how you were going to get there, but like every entrepreneur, hello, you have challenges. So you're in high school. I remember when you went to ODU, what were you studying when you were there?
Music, business, and production. But it was only like the first year. So, I mean, I was immediately thrown into those, I can't think of the term for the classes, but like the standard.
The general stuff. Yeah.
I only had one class that was related to music, and it was a music notation class, like music theory. It was so hard.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Because that's a totally different world than what you live in. I mean, that's like the cerebral part of music, which, hello, that's
a lot of
awesome.
math.
It's a ton of math. Yes.
Yeah. That I never even took music theory because I'm like, whatever, I'm good at math, but I don't have the patience for that kind of stuff. And this is kind of off track, but that's one beef that I have with higher education is that we usually don't get to study the things that really are in our major until like our junior year. And most young people, they don't really know what they want to study. I didn't. And I chose accounting, which was a big mistake. I mean, I was really good at it, but I hated it. But you, on the flip side, you knew what you wanted to do. And so both of us, though, weren't being served because I didn't get the exposure to things to figure out what I wanted to do. And you didn't get to dip your toe in deep enough to feel fulfilled enough to stay. So you left. And then right after that is when you went to New York, right?
Yeah, I came back home for a little bit at the time. I think I may have spent 6 months to a year or so in Halifax again. I was working at the bistro at the time. And
that's right. I forgot. All right, y'all. Bistro 1888.
Bistro.
We talked about.
They've always been so sweet to me. Those are my people over there. I miss them. They were great to me.
I totally forgot that you worked there, and I would be like, "How do y'all remember what everybody's ordering?" You know.
It was serious. I learned so much about food in that place. I think that restaurant, to be honest, that was my first job in restaurant or any sort of thing outside of music, was working at Bistro with Barbara and Margaret. And they taught me so much in terms of standards and like food service and hospitality and stuff. I think I got really lucky in having that job because it taught me a lot of people skills. Like I was forced to interact with so many different people on a given day in that restaurant, and, from all walks of life. It helped me a lot in ways I didn't really realize at the time.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And Barb and Margaret are very talented and smart and very professional. So if you work for them and you're there for any length of time, you are going to do what they say because they know what it takes to be successful. And I agree with you that you learn so much from working there, as if you would work somewhere that was like, people are really lax and kind of just get along or whatever, it would not have prepared you in the customer service world and the marketing world. And so you learn things from there that are helping you now in your sideline job. We'll talk about that later, but also in your music career, because you learn to speak professionally with people. And not just with like fries with that, not to cut people down, but you had to sell because you come up to people and you're describing the dishes and the desserts and everything.
Yeah, and like you said, there was a certain manner in which you addressed these people. It wasn't just like, "Hey, y'all, how you doing?" Like there was a little bit of professionalism that was required. So it taught me a lot about that.
Yeah, even if it was a customer like me who was like, "Hey, Dane, how you doing?" He still had to, he could lovey-dovey a little, but he still had to, and that, I think that's great. All the people that have worked for them have learned so much. So I think that's cool. So you worked there for like 6 or 8 months or whatever, and then you went to New York for, how long were you up there?
Only about 5 months, maybe 4 or 5 months.
God, it seemed longer than that.
It did. It is. And in my memory, it seems so much longer too. I think just because we were packing so much into that little 5-month period, like we were doing so much while I was up there that, it feels like I lived there for a year or so, but it was only a few months.
Tell us what you were doing.
That's kind of a long story. So going back to Halifax, at the time when I was working at Bistro, I was still playing shows a lot. Anything that would come up, like restaurant gigs, bar gigs, that type of thing. And I played a show one evening out at Berry Hill at that tavern, and
Yeah.
I met Tamara Fuller at the time, who had I think she owned that college or was working at that college out at
Yes,
Berry
she
Hill,
owns
and
it.
she invited me to New York City because she told me she had a bunch of connections out there in the industry and all over the industries of New York City. She did real estate stuff. So she was like, I have opportunities. And so we moved up there and gigged and recorded. So for probably 4 months, I was playing shows 3 and 4 nights a week, sometimes maybe more. And we were recording music with a couple of producers just over the bridge in like Hoboken, New Jersey.
Oh, uh-huh.
So it was mainly just, I think the objective when we went out there was just to create some sort of product, do a bunch of gigging, and like see how people felt about it. So it was, I'd say the majority of it was live performances, and then me walking around New York alone with my guitar, busking in the streets
Busking,
and
yeah.
making money. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you were doing the live performances, were they usually in bars or were they in all different kinds of places?
Everything. I mean, I did everything from restaurants to talent shows to I think one time this gig I turned it down. This is one of my favorite stories from New York, but Tamara asked me one night. I mean, we were kind of in the mindset that we would take on any sort of gig. Like I did a comedy show on Staten Island one night that was just like a variety show. It was the craziest thing I've ever been a part of in my life. The memories are hilarious.
Wow.
But another one that we were asked to do that I turned down was a wake for one of the prominent subway drivers,
Oh,
one of the guys
wow.
that like operated for the New York subway, and they needed a musician to play during his wake,
Oh
and
my
I
God.
unfortunately did not do that. But yeah, I mean, we were playing a lot of
That
gigs.
would
We
have
were doing a
been
lot of shows.
fun though, if it's like some of
I
the wakes
guess,
I've been to.
yeah, who knows what was going to happen?
That's
I didn't
pretty
think that sounded
wild.
like a good idea.
Well, wait a minute. I got to look and see if I can find something. Just give me a second, y'all.
Okay.
Oh, crap.
That's terrifying. I'm scared.
Okay, no, y'all keep talking. Let's keep talking because I lost what I had. I'll find it though. But
Cool.
okay, so you went up there. I remember when you came back, and y'all had that show. You had that show at the Prizery, right? That
Yeah.
was so much
That
fun.
That was
And
kind of like the culmination of everything. At that point, we had, I think, 5 songs. We'd made this little EP thing, and that was kind of, I guess, like the release party for that, if I remember correct.
yeah, and it was packed. Everybody was
It
there.
was.
Everybody
That was
was
a fun
like,
show.
"Yay, James back." That was really
That
cool.
was
And
so
of course,
cool.
your daddy played the drums,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Eric Newton played with you, right? And
Yes, he
Robin
did.
Robbins. I don't remember who else.
I think Carl Meadows did some
Yeah.
bass with us. Yeah, it was
Mhm.
the normal guys. That was what made it so fun, was that it was the people that I'd known and been around and jammed with my whole life. That was one of my favorite shows of life, I would say.
Yeah, that was really cool. I'm sorry, I'm looking for something. So I am really
It's
listening, but I'm
okay.
looking at the same time because I'm gonna be mean. Not mean, but I'm gonna
Okay.
act like if your mother was here, because moms always have to embarrass their kids no matter how they
Always.
Of course.
I expect nothing less.
okay, so you did the show at the Prizery,
hmm
and then you were here for a little while, right? And then you moved to Richmond?
Yeah, I moved with my dad for a little bit. We stayed in Farmville for some time. He had a cabin out
Oh, yeah,
there.
I forgot about that.
So we did that for a little bit. And I mean, during that time, I had a little recording set up in that house as well. So, I mean, his drums were there. We were still making tons of music and stuff.
Yeah.
I feel like that period in all of our lives was a little bit of like a transitional thing. And so he eventually moved from Farmville to Richmond, and I followed him to do that as well, which is what got me into Richmond too.
Yeah.
So
And
I
then
hung out with Dad, I think, for maybe a year or so.
yeah. Yeah, and Richmond's such a great place to be for music because there's so many people. And then Rachel, you probably know that VCU has a music program. So there's just a lot of music stuff. By the way, Rachel, I'm sorry I've been blabbing the whole time. Just butt in when you want to ask something, okay?
I was like, timeline.
Oh yeah, hold on. Spencer said, "Hold it, Glenn rocked at the show." Yeah, y'all. My son.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Dane was kind enough to invite my son up. to play one
Man,
of
we had
his
just
own
finished
songs.
recording that CD of his. We recorded that album of his. Remember that in your
Yeah,
basement?
yeah, that was fun. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Thank you for reminding us of that, Spencer. And then let's see, then Glenn moved over, and before y'all moved in together, though, you were living in different places, but that's
Yeah.
where the first finger accident was, at his place, right?
It was, yeah, actually, it was at
That
his
heavy
apartment.
metal door, because we
Yeah.
got there.
Yeah.
Tom and I happened to come up like the next day for something, and Glenn is like, "Oh my God, Dane," and I'm not gonna tell the story. I'm gonna let you, but it was like blood and stuff was there. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna pass out.
Yeah. It was
Tell
a,
me
it was
what
a
happened.
rough one. Yeah. So, yeah. What did you say? I'm sorry.
I said, tell them what happened, because they know you had an accident with the door, but that's all they knew.
Yeah. So, I guess that night, like, I remember it pretty well. I was actually on a first date with this girl that I had just started talking to.
Oh, no.
And I brought her over to Glenn's, I guess, just to introduce her. And, Glenn's was always the place that we would come to hang out. That was like the chill zone, if you will. We were always over there hanging out. So,
Yeah.
but that night we went over and we were all just kind of hanging out, doing the normal thing. And as we were leaving at the bottom of his apartment, like you said, there was a massive metal door. That thing weighed a ton.
It was like an
And
industrial door.
it made no sense as to why that was put on that apartment building. They were trying to keep someone in or out of there.
I know, really, it might have been it. Glenn living there, it might have been
I know
it.
Glenn was there. They were like, keep him off the streets. But so she and I were leaving. I think we were planning to go somewhere else, but I was holding the door for her, and she was a shorter girl. So I was holding the door and she walked under my arm. And as I walked out, my finger got caught, I guess, in the crease where the door closes.
Oh.
And I mean,
Where
it
the hinges
was,
are, Rachel.
yeah. Yeah.
And
So
that
it was done.
Was that your middle finger?
Yeah. Yeah. The middle finger on my left hand.
And they were not
And
able to reattach that, right?
No. Glenn went upstairs and got me a bag of frozen meatballs, which I put on the fingertip.
He probably didn't have any ice, right? Because they'd used
There
all
was
the
no ice. It was a bag of frozen meatballs.
Yeah,
I'll never
because they
forget it.
probably had used all the ice and never thought to
For
refill
drinks.
it.
Yeah, we were drinking the ice. That was gone.
I'm assuming the date was over at this point.
Yeah, really.
Well, here's the funny thing. No, here's the funny thing is that, like, when it happened, it was clearly like a traumatic experience. All of our friends were that were there were trying to help me figure out how to get me to a hospital.
Yeah.
We put my finger in a little bag. Like, it was
At
wild.
least,
And
I'm impressed that y'all even thought that clearly. Seriously, that's
Well,
good.
People often ask me if I was impaired at the time, and honest to God, you know me, I would tell you. At the time, no, we were not. Like, we had maybe had a beer or two. We were fairly sober. It was early in the evening, so
it was just a freak accident. Yeah.
Yeah. And luckily for me, like, I had some friends around who had their wits about them and were able to kind of help me out. So I ended up going to the hospital, and that girl skateboarded from that apartment all the way down to the hospital and met me there.
Is that anybody I know?
We ended up dating. Her name was Gloria. I don't know if you ever met her.
Yeah, I
She's
don't know
so
her. I knew Sammy.
So sweet.
Okay,
Yeah,
y'all.
We ended up dating for a long time, but yeah.
This is the picture I was going to show you. I got to get it in front of the camera if you can see it. Dane. Wait a minute. Dane.
Why are you doing like that?
This is after he left. This is after he came back from New York, was living here for a while, and we went back up to New York City, Rachel, because my cousin that used to own the music production studio, he has like, I don't know how many gold records. So anyway, that was what I was like, since your mom is not here,
I get one embarrassment.
And I think she had some kind of some kind of dental surgery today or something, but she doesn't have Facebook anyway. So I'm like, I have to embarrass you because that's a mother's job,
Do you remember how sunburned we were on that trip? Do you remember that my face was like leather?
Yeah.
You can see it in that photo.
Yes, you can. I'm glad that you said that because I had totally forgotten. Was that because y'all had been out on our lake, or why were you so?
I think so. We were either at the cabin or something. We had been out doing something. I can't remember what it was. But we were destroyed.
Yeah. Oh, so here let's see. I don't know if y'all can see it. That's, oh shoot, y'all.
Oh yeah, that was
So
Glenn.
that's my cousin. See how tall he is? I mean, you can
Oh,
barely
yeah.
see it. But anyway, that was so much fun, though. All
It
right,
was.
so we went to New York City. Then you moved over with Spencer, and then you lived in
Mhm.
Richmond, and you were
Mhm.
still living with Spencer when you had that accident, though, right?
Yes, actually, yeah, we were still out in that little cabin right on the outskirts of Richmond at the time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that little cabin. That was
It
cool.
was so cool. That was such a cool place.
It was cool. So then after that, so you keep pursuing your music and everything, but then you had another accident, right?
Yeah. So, during that time, like that finger was wrapped up. I couldn't use it on anything. I mean, it took almost a year of like rehabilitation, going to physical therapy, and not to mention like the surgeries. I had to have stitches taken out of. I mean, it was a process. And then it was almost a year later to the date I was doing repairs on a bicycle, and I cut off my pinky finger and ring finger on the same hand.
Can you imagine, Rachel?
Is it okay? But
Yeah.
was it your dominant hand? Not that that matters, but was it
Yeah.
It's the
fretting.
fretting hand, the
Okay.
one that requires, but no, I
Oh.
mean, it's the one that requires positioning and stuff. So I need those fingers.
Yeah.
So
That was devastating.
crazy enough is when that one happened, at that moment, I had 3 fingers that were completely out of use. And so I was using these 2. And so it got to the point where I was learning how to like play guitar by muting and doing like weird 2-finger stuff.
Wow.
But crazily enough, during that time period, it forced me to focus instead of on that hand on like finger picking and more intricate strumming patterns. So it
that's
almost
cool.
like forced me to do something different.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
that's something that we can talk about, y'all, Rachel and Dane, because that's so important that when we have something that knocks us back on our heels, that we learn from it and use it to move forward, or as we like to say in the entrepreneur world, fail forward.
Right.
Don't just give up and don't just accept it. Accept what happened, but learn from it and build on it and make yourself better in some kind of way.
Absolutely.
Was that a thought for you immediately, Dane? Did you go through a period where you didn't feel like moving forward or didn't think it was possible? Or what was that like mental shift for you? Or was it always, well, this sucks, I'm going to move forward? What was that like for you?
Well, I remember the night of, like, I mean, my dad, I think, will tell this story. Like, I think I remember the night of kind of asking and being curious as to whether or not I'd ever be able to play again. Like, I mean, that's a dramatic thought because it's a singular finger. But in that moment, I was just like, is this it? Like, is that done? But I think beyond that day, even, like, there was never a question. Music was what I had always done, and I don't think there's anything that could separate me from it. So I don't know. I didn't ever really consciously think about it. I just I think it was more or less like a mission subconsciously to just continue.
This thing is not going to stop me from doing what I want to do.
I obviously was not there, but any of the conversations with you or secondhand with Glenn, everything was about getting past this, figuring out a way to keep going. Of course, one person you can look at and learn from is Jerry Garcia, because he didn't let that stop him, did he?
Yeah, no. There are a few musicians. I mean, Django Reinhardt. There's a bunch of musicians and talented folks who have overcome stuff like that. Little physical things. I mean, it's a physical thing.
Your daddy, this is sweet. He said he has to share that during this time that you never gave up, and he was so proud of your persistence. And I will tell you,
that's my best friend right there. That's my best friend right there.
I know Spencer's awesome. I'm going to tell y'all, whether you're a musician or you're a construction company owner, I don't care what you are, persistence is the key to success, because you can be the most talented person in the world, but if you are not persistent and you can't power through the setbacks and you can't learn from them, you will never be able to be successful. I think that's why, not that this is the topic of this show, but I think that's why a lot of kids who are like the children of celebrities or in really wealthy families, where they're not able to ever really find themselves because they haven't had challenges to work through. But I do remember
pressure creates diamonds. You know how that goes.
What?
I said pressure creates diamonds. You know how that
Yes.
goes. So
Yeah.
you gotta struggle to get some pretty out of it.
That's right. You know, for a while there, Dane, I do remember though, it was like, oh my God, Dane is the most unlucky person in the world. I'm
It felt
sorry
like
for
that.
laughing, but remember you riding your bicycle? Was it you or was it Glenn? Somebody opened the door. Was that you
It
or
was
Glenn?
me.
That's
It
what
was
I
me.
thought. This old man opens his car door, parked by the sidewalk, Rachel,
Yeah.
and he's riding his bike and he hits the door and goes flying over it.
Yeah. That's happened 3 or 4 times. I mean, I cycled for a decade. That happened so many times. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And
This body has seen some things.
And then the time that you got beat up because somebody else said something terrible.
Yeah.
A guy that they knew who just happened to be with them visiting in town, and they were out late at night, and he made a racist comment, and which Dane is not like that at all. He would never do that, but he got, pardon me, y'all, he got the shit kicked out of him because this other guy did. It was just like every time you turned around, Dane.
You're just indestructible. You're indestructible.
Yeah. And
Well, in retrospect, I was setting myself up for a lot of that because I know we're inevitably going to get to like the alcohol part of it. But during all of this, you use the word shit, so I'm gonna use it. I was shit faced the whole time.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of this stuff
with the finger accident.
No, yeah, you're right. You're right. Not with that, but with a lot of the stuff, I kind of looked back and could see that it was based on a certain trajectory that I was taking.
I get it.
You know?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? I was talking to Tom earlier tonight. I was like, my trajectory up until my mid-20s wasn't that awesome. I mean, we all go through that.
Absolutely.
But I mean, personally, I don't think that overall, I don't think you were on a much different trajectory than any of the people y'all's age. The biggest difference is that when you're in the music industry, almost all of your work is in nightclubs and bars. So you're surrounded by alcohol while you're working. And then, like you had mentioned in an interview, people are also buying you drinks and you don't want to hurt their feelings by turning it down, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And especially in Richmond, I mean, it was, like you said before, it was on the VCU campus. So the majority of the people at these shows were young folks that were excited to be there and having a good time. And like, as the guy on stage with the guitar, I mean, it's your job to entertain. And so everyone wants to have a shot with the dude playing music. And so it was just like a thing that happened incessantly.
Yeah. And probably made it harder because you're playing in the town that you live in. So if you're playing somewhere else where nobody knows you and you have one of those nights that you want to pour it when they're not looking and they see you, that's different. But if it's in the same town that you're living in and people, oh, he's an ass, whatever, you feel more pressure to have to make other people feel good, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So at what point, and y'all, the audience, we're going to talk about this now. We're going to talk about Dane realizing that he was not on the trajectory he wanted to be with drinking. And I think so many of us go through that. I don't care if it's drinking, eating, whatever. We all have some kind of something that it would be easy to go down the wrong road. So at what point, I know you probably gradually realize it, but at what point did you really realize this is not what I want and I want to change it?
There are a couple that stand out to me. And I mean, I'd have to tell you both because like you said, it was a process and I don't think I could nail down any specific time, but one of the memories I have is that, when I lived in New York, one of the nights at this, bar I was playing, they were doing live recording of the shows and they'd give you a CD of the set after the fact. And I remember my dad coming to me and giving me this CD and he basically was just like, hey dude, listen to this. And I put it on and it was me completely wasted, slurring and messing up words on songs. And, it was embarrassing to say the least. And so in that moment, it was one of those rare occurrences where you kind of get to see yourself from the outside. And I was like, wow, like that's what I'm doing on these. Like, that's not who I want to be on the stage. And so that was one of the moments. And then, I mean, I would say this is an embarrassing story, but I mean, we're going to talk about it. I'm not a shy person. I was playing another bar in Richmond that was one of my residencies. I played there every Friday night. And on this particular night, I got way too drunk and I don't remember doing this, but apparently I just finished the set before I was supposed to be done. And this was on a outdoor patio, and they had like this vacant bar that was no longer in use on this patio. And I went behind the bar and fell asleep.
Oh my God.
And I guess people thought that I left because the bar closed. They locked the bar. I woke up at like 4 a.m. still in the bar.
Oh my gosh,
And
Dane.
so I had to navigate with all of my gear, like feeding it over this fence. And then I had to walk through the fan of Richmond all the way back to my house in the museum district. And it was like, I remember crying on that walk home. Like I remember, because I was starting to sober up and I was just like, what the hell are you doing, dude?
That's
like,
a brutal wake-up call.
Absolutely. So, I mean, I would say those two instances were probably the ones that stick out the most in my memory of just moments where I knew like, this is not who you want to be.
Wow. I didn't know that story. I knew the other one. Man, that's like, it's amazing that you made it home safely that time in the morning, you know?
Well, and as you were realizing this, Dane, what was the thing that, did you stop cold turkey? How was this process like for you? What was that detox like, or what was that transition?
Well, anyone that knows me knows that if I'm going to do something, I'm doing it full tilt. Like there's no half measures in any way. And so I tried cold turkey numerous times. So for probably a year, 2 years, I would stop for a little bit, a couple of days here and there, and then it would pick back up. So I don't think there was like a singular moment where I just closed the door on it. But when I did, I did. Like it was July 14th of 2014, I think is what it was. And that was it. I mean, like I remember the date, like I wrote the date down, and I think for me, it became like building time. So I would like, once I got a week, I'd post on Facebook or something like 1 week, guys. And like, I don't think people understood at the time. It wasn't me posting for like some sort of gratification or anybody being like, great job. It was accountability for myself.
Yeah.
It was the fact that if I put it out in the universe that way, like, hey guys, I'm quitting drinking, then I knew that in my brain, I would find it much more difficult to pick it back up, because I'd be like, hey dude, you told everyone you were stopping. Exactly. So I used Facebook and like in whatever I was using at the time, I can't remember. I think it was mostly Facebook, but just to keep stacking time. And then before I knew it, it was a year. And then it was 2, and then it was 3.
That's a great idea, or a great point. People, y'all listen to Dane. Well, it doesn't have to be what he did to hold himself accountable, but you have to figure out a way to hold yourself accountable to reaching your goals. I think for most entrepreneurs, it's either finding a great coach or a mastermind, which mastermind is when you have a group of people. Typically they're going to be a bit higher than you because you want people that will push you, but both of those things will hold people accountable. And I think it's so great that you figured that out on your own, Dane. And I'm not saying that to be all whatever. It's just awesome that, because everybody is different and everybody has to figure out what is the thing that's going to help me stick with it. And
that's so true. I've encountered so many friends of mine that have tried to quit, or that have tried to open up to me about their journey of taking the same steps. And it's shown that to me so much that it's all different for every single person. It's a different journey, and everyone has their own hurdles that they got to jump through. You have to find your way.
If you try to do what somebody else did because it worked for them, it literally can make things worse for you. I'm going to give you a really simple example. With me, Dane, you know, I'm very impulsive. I'm a night owl. I don't like repetitive tasks. I'm just very like, that's just the way that I am. And I'll put pressure on myself. I'll be like, I need to learn to get up in the morning earlier. I need to blah, blah, blah. So about a month or 2 ago, I read this book. It's a really, really good book. But I mean, I'm 59. I know better than this. I know better than to look at something as a prescription. But the guy who wrote the book was, you know, blah, blah, blah. The whole book is great. But then he gets to this certain point and it's like more prescription. Do this, blah, 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 blah. And one of the things was get up an hour earlier. And I'm like, I can do this. No, I can't. No. The fact is, yes, I can. But is that productive to me? No, because I'm like, you know, it's just, my brain doesn't kick in till a certain, and it has nothing to do with how long I've slept. I can go to bed at 7 in the evening and my body still doesn't get awake till a certain time of the day. But the point of that is I knew better. And I was like, I'm going to do this. And I installed this stupid little time scheduling app on my phone because he was like, you block everything off. Again, I cannot even believe that I did it. But I was like, ooh, I'm going to do this. And I put in like, this time to this time, I'm checking email. And this time to this time, I bet had a nervous breakdown. I didn't even do it one day. I did not even do it one day. But what did happen is it made me feel like crap about myself. I'm like, what the hell is wrong with me? I'm such a fucking loser. I cannot even, I cannot even, that's not the first time I've said that on this show. So y'all just have to learn.
I didn't flinch at all. We didn't flinch in any way.
If you don't like the word, I'm sorry. Don't listen to my show. But fine, it didn't work. But when I say didn't work, that's like saying a diet doesn't work for somebody because, but the point is it was not the right thing for me. But instead of me just going, oh, this is stupid. Why did I even, it literally made me feel so bad about myself that I went into, and I'm not usually like this, but I went into like a funk, a kind of a spirally funk for about 2 weeks. I'm not joking, y'all. And I couldn't figure out what was wrong because I'm not normally like that. And then I started backtracking and I was like, oh my God. And
I think it's hard to do something the same way that somebody else does. Yeah. Like you're saying, it's the prescription that somebody gave you. You're thinking this will make me more productive. This will be whatever it is. I think that's a really hard thing when you're creative. And I know, Lisa, you and I have talked about this before, but not everybody's brain works like that. I'm very much like you. I have tried the whole time blocking thing. It does not work. Yeah. I have a creative list that I work off of and I know my deadlines. And that's
exactly, that's who I am. Yeah.
That's like that kind of thing. But I think that I don't know. I think it's all about knowing yourself, just like it's knowing yourself with the alcohol, knowing yourself, how you work in the process. I think that is just being in tune with who you are as a person. I think that's one of the best gifts that we can give ourselves is just knowing exactly what makes us tick,
Yeah. Rachel, I could not agree with you more. And the more we understand ourselves, and look, y'all, we're not trying to be all touchy-feely, new agey, whatever. But the bottom line is the more that we understand ourselves, the more we're able to figure out what motivates us, what makes us feel worse, what do we like, what do we not like, but more importantly, why do we like it? Why do we not like it? Why does it motivate us? Like with me, I know I don't like repetitive tasks. I don't care what it is. I don't like it. But I'm also like an all or nothing person. Like Dane with you with cycling and stuff. I'm like, you know what? If I'm going to do something, I'm like balls to the wall, going to do it. And just, work out whatever. This is, I'm very like focused, but I have a really hard time. If I get off track, I have a hard time getting back on. So I know that I have to do things, and people would be like, if you just take a day off, what's the big deal? But for me, it's better, which sounds weird since I don't like repetitive tasks, but I'm not talking about like I don't like little repetitive tasks, do this for 15 minutes a day. I'm like, no, I don't want to do it for 15 minutes. I want to do it for 2 hours.
The structure is confining. Having structure and being told like you have this many minutes to do this thing is more stressful than it is productive in any way.
It is for us. Now I understand there are many people that it is great for, but not for me. My head's going to explode. And my poor husband had to live with me. He's like, I don't know what's wrong with her, but I'm staying out of her way.
Poor Tom.
But Dane, I implied this. So you started cycling though, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that started in Richmond.
Cycling, but you got into it really like for fitness?
Probably subconsciously. I think it was one of those things. I mean, I got into it after the finger injuries. And so I think like if I look back at it, it was, or kind of in the middle of the finger injuries. Like I was building a bicycle when I cut those other two off.
Yeah.
So I think there was something that like, as it progressed, I found a meditative state when I would cycle for long distances.
Yeah.
And so it was one of those things where like I know that I had some like I guess you would even call it some PTSD or there was a lot of pent up energy from those injuries that needed to be released in some way. And whether I knew it or not, cycling was doing that for me.
Yeah.
And so it started as a practicality because I did not have a vehicle and I had jobs to get to. And so I had to buy a bike. Like I remember working at Jersey Mike's for the first 2 or 3 weeks and taking that first paycheck and going to Carytown Bicycles and buying my first little bicycle. Like it was all a process. But once I was on the bike, it was done.
I remember that when you bought that bike, that was a huge deal that you were able to save the money to buy it.
Yeah. I mean, in retrospect, it was like $300, $200, but I thought it was like buying a Mercedes.
Well, that's a lot of money when you're first starting out too. That's a big, that is a big deal.
It is a big deal. Yeah. So tell us now, catch us up now, because I've gone way down in the rabbit hole with this. You moved to LA when? Like 5 years ago?
It was 2014.
Okay.
So, no, 2016.
Okay,
2016.
So 5 years ago. Okay.
Wow, it's all running together now. I've never had that happen before. Yeah, I think it was 2016, February 2016.
Tell us about some of your musical experiences, but also tell us about your sideline job or whatever you want to call it that you're doing to help you get to where you want to be professionally.
Well, the reason I was brought out here was to record a second album for the group that I'm in. I'm in a band called Built to Fade. Mm-hmm. And it's with a producer named No, K-N-O, and then Fjeur, F-J-E-R. She's from Denmark. And then Zoe Wick, who is I think she's from Seattle originally, but she lives in LA now. So we had written a record and released it in 2013-ish, and then we were supposed to record and release a second album. So at the time I was working in Richmond working at Jersey Mike's, and No called me from LA and asked, how quickly can you quit your job if I put you on an airplane and move you to LA? And I said, 2 weeks. And so I sold all my stuff in Richmond. I came out to LA with a bicycle, a guitar, and a backpack. And I moved in with No, and we started recording that record. And so for the first few months, even almost, I think, a year that I lived out here, I didn't have an actual job. We were just like recording music, and I was living in the recording studio in Reseda, like in the microphone room. I had a bed on a couch in the microphone room. Which was amazing. Like I thought that was one of the most fun aspects of this whole journey. Yeah. So inevitably, like I think the trip initially was supposed to be just a few months of recording, but I figured out eventually that I was going to be here for some time, and I knew that I had to get a job. I'm not one to live a life where I can't take care of myself. I like independence and making my own money and doing that. So it got to a point where like, we were recording this album, but I knew that I had to sort of put in some sort of roots out here. And so I've always done restaurant. So I started looking for restaurant work. I went to Jersey Mike's again for a little bit. And then I worked at a furniture store in West Hollywood selling like bearskin rugs to Shaun White, that X Games dude. Like it was some crazy experiences in Hollywood at that furniture store.
I can imagine.
It's unbelievable. Couches that were $5,000 plus. I've never seen anything like it.
And well, $5,000 for a couch is really probably cheap. You know,
I know that's probably conservative if we're being honest. Like I learned more about furniture.
I mean, it is for me, but
yeah, it's crazy. It was a new world for me. I'd never seen anything like that.
Yeah.
So the whole time
you're used to picking stuff up. Oh, somebody threw this out. I'm gonna take it. Look, we got it.
In Richmond, we were picking stuff off the street corners. You would drive by and be like, "That couch looks mildly used," and we'd grab it. That was it.
I've lived that life. I totally get that. Yeah.
That's funny.
You have to do what you have to do.
That's right. And I don't care if you're a musician, if you're a construction worker or what, you have your goals, you figure out what it takes to reach them, and you do anything that it takes to do it. I actually remember when you first, was it Twitter that you had reached out to No on? That you met?
Actually, it was MySpace.
Oh, MySpace.
And what's crazy,
I remember when it happened.
I was going to say, what's crazy about that is the first phone call that I had with No was at your house.
I thought so,
Like,
because I remember you're like, oh my God, Glenn, you're never going to guess.
I couldn't believe it, because at the time, Glenn and I were just fans of No and his rap group. Like, that was music that we played when we were hanging out, drinking beers together and hanging out. Like, we listened to this guy's music.
Yeah.
And so I had sent him a message on MySpace. I think it just said something along the lines of like, if you need any help with guitar work, or, you have anywhere that you could use me on a production, let me know. And he sent me his phone number, which I thought was bullshit. I was like, there's no way this is actually him.
No.
There's no way this is real. But yeah, we spoke on the phone on your back patio. That was like the beginning of all of this.
I remember that so distinctly. And I remember I have told so many people since then, that is a perfect example of how you never know. But if you sit there and wait for people to come to you, it ain't gonna happen.
No way.
You literally never know who you reach out to, and you might hit them at just the right time, especially now during COVID, because it rocked everybody's world. So a lot of people that you would normally think, oh, those people would never pay attention to me, even like CEOs of big companies, they're like, ooh, they don't know what to do either. So a lot of people that I know have reached out to people that they never expected to be able to get through to, and they have. But the fact that you were able to do that back in the MySpace days, and I guess y'all were like 21, probably 2021. Maybe 21. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was crazy.
I mean, I'd sent those same messages to hundreds of artists all over the world. I'd been doing that forever. And it's interesting you put that into perspective for me. I didn't even think about it. I mean, like, I wouldn't be sitting in this van in LA right now if I didn't send that MySpace message.
Exactly.
Like, that's crazy to me.
And, yeah, right, Rachel. And Dane, you didn't know it, but you were cold calling.
Yes.
100%. Yeah.
And you just didn't know it. You're just like, whatever, I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to keep reaching out to people. And he might not have ever replied, but you would have kept doing it. It would have been, you would have finally.
I still do it to this day. If I run across someone on Instagram and I enjoy what I'm hearing, even if they're 10 times more famous than me, or they have one follower or whatever, it's irrelevant. If I find some art that I feel like I can mesh with, or the style meshes with, I send them a message.
That's great.
I mean, yeah, I'm working with a guy out here that I met in the dispensary, the weed shop out here. He's one of my best friends. We've become best friends over the last year or so, and an insane talented musician. And I mean, when I met him, he just posted a couple of videos playing with his guitar on Instagram, but I knew we could make stuff. So I sent him a message.
Look, there are 2 lessons for y'all entrepreneurs for that. Number 1, Dane was cold calling, and he's open to networking. When people think of networking, they think of giving people business cards. No, it's being friendly, it's talking, it's getting to know people on a personal basis. So that's number 1. And number 2, the guy who is now your friend was putting himself out there.
Yes, 100%.
If he had not put himself out there, you would have never run across him. It didn't matter if he only had 1 follower. The fact that he put himself out there the way that he did helped you discover him.
Yeah.
And so y'all need to look at both sides of that and understand that that's what you need to be doing, both things of. You need to be reaching out to people and networking and trying to find people that you have things in common with. And not just because you want to make something out of it, but because it's good for us to connect with. It's good for your soul to connect with people. You need to be doing that, but you also need to be putting yourself out there, your true self, so that people understand who you are and what you stand for, and then the right people will be attracted to you.
That's so true, Lisa, and that's 100%. I mean, that's how I've built my business. I mean, it's about authenticity, and it's about, like what you're saying, Dane, just putting it out there, coming up with, if it's a pitch, great. But I think that pitches can almost be, I don't know, overused so many times. I think it's having an understanding of what you're trying to accomplish, and then picking the platform or picking the thing that you're comfortable with starting to do that, and then consistently doing those messages, or consistently finding those people that you connect with, like you're saying, Lisa. I think that that's absolutely the way to do this. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not a fakey, gimmicky thing. No. It's that you are being yourself.
It can be.
It can be, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about be yourself.
Right.
And then be yourself, put yourself out there, and then you will attract the people
Yes.
you want to be attracted to you.
Especially in music and art and stuff like that. I find, I mean, I've fallen into this trap before myself, but over the years I've learned that this is not the way. But you see people who are talented and you feel this desire to just like, I want to be in their space now, or I want to work with them, or I want to do this. When in actuality, I have found that like most of the connections I've had that have been worthwhile and super fulfilling have just been based on like initial relationships and friendships. So I think the lesson that I get from that is that like, you never know who you're speaking to. You could be at a grocery store talking to the person behind the counter. You never know. So like I try to navigate life where like when I walk up and down this block in Venice Beach, I speak to everyone I see.
Yeah.
Everyone knows me out here because I make a point to be present and to be available. And so like an example of this is like my buddy that works at the surf shop up here. Like we've known each other for a year or two at this point. I haven't ever reached out or looked at him as like an opportunity or that he would even possess an opportunity for me, but he just recently reached out and was like, hey, there's a potential restaurant gig that like may get you from this one to that one. So, I mean, it's like, if you are kind to people and you make yourself available, the ones who are meant to facilitate you will find you.
Yes. I couldn't say that any better. I mean, it's such a great lesson. And I really am begging y'all out there, please learn this lesson. Be yourself. Don't be fakey, but also don't be afraid to put yourself out there, and don't be afraid to reach out to people, but reach out to them in a genuine way. Look, don't reach out and be like, oh my God, you're awesome. And this is what I do. And can I do, don't reach out to people in a salesy way, but like Dane, you reached out to know, and you're like, I love your music. And, and you just never know when you're going to hit that right person.
Well, with him, I reached out with like an offer of services. Like, it's not like, hey dude, I think you're amazing as an artist. Like, what can you do for me? The message was literally, I love the style of your music. I'm a guitarist. I think we could make something. If you find use for me, I'd love to be a part of it. Like, here I am, but I'm going to go stand over here. Like, let me know if you need anything.
Exactly. You didn't go, this is what I do and this is what I want. That's what I'm saying. You didn't say, I want to do such and such, and can you do this for me? Let him know what you do. And then it was up to him to come back. So there's nothing wrong in letting people know what you do and what you're trying to do. But what you don't want to do is to be the equivalent of the person at a party who won't shut the hell up about themselves and the widget that they're selling. And they just go, they keep yapping about it, and nobody wants to stand next to them because everybody else wants to relax and have fun.
Yeah.
All right, Dane, I want you to tell everybody how they can find you, number one, your music, and buy your music and all that stuff, or find you wherever you're going to be playing next. And number two, where they can get that delicious food that you're making.
We'll start with the food. We'll get the food out of the way now. So the restaurant is called Egg Slut. It's in Venice Beach, California. It's a breakfast joint. Sorry, my phone is buzzing. It's a breakfast joint. So I'm in there 5 days a week, early in the morning, slinging breakfast sandwiches and then surfing. It's
so cool, though. Tell them just like a blur. Tell them a little bit about what it is, because it's not just a breakfast place. You're
right. It's gracious. It's a small menu done really well. Everything on the menu has eggs in some type of way. It's kind of become like an Instagram hype spot. So we have people from all over the world coming here specifically to eat at Egg Slut with their cameras out, ready to vlog and film themselves. So, I mean, it's really a cool popping place, like in this little neighborhood in Venice Beach. And when I got hired there, I mean, I was a prep guy for a couple of days a week, and I've worked my way all the way up to managing that store. And so I've kind of like put my foot in the door here in Venice in some type of way. And that's where I'm at most of the time, is in that restaurant.
That's cool. All right. So now tell us about the meat. Oh, wait. Excellent. EGG.
No, Egg Slut.
Egg Slut. That's right.
Yeah. EGGSLUT.
SLUT. That's right. Egg Slut.
Which is that was a term that was coined by Anthony Bourdain, the chef. And so I think that he was the first one to utter those words. And then our chef, Alvin, when he started this as a food truck, took that on, and that became funny. So,
I love it.
Yeah. So
all right. So now tell everybody where they can find you to listen to your awesome music and to buy it.
Well, you can buy it anywhere and everywhere. It's all available on iTunes, Spotify, Apple Music, all that stuff. I will have to say though that from an artist perspective, my preferred place to sell stuff is on Bandcamp.
Yeah.
They're probably the most beneficial for artists. Most of those other streaming services, it's hard for an artist to make any sort of money on
Yeah.
streaming services in any way. But I'm on Bandcamp, I'm on YouTube, anywhere you can search my name, you'll find some music.
Okay.
My Instagram account is the name's Dane, so you can find me on Instagram there. I think that at this point, my main sources of promotion are going to be the Instagram and YouTube. That's where most of the stuff's coming out.
Yeah.
And so navigating that has been interesting as like a self-sufficient independent artist, because there's so much opportunity on the internet to put yourself out there, but you also have to kind of funnel that into the most important locations. And I would say that Instagram and YouTube are the two right now.
Yeah. Well, and I also want to say, anybody out there, if you are a performer or you know someone who is, Dane is a very talented songwriter. So if you're looking for some unique songs to perform, get with Dane, because, and you know, I'm serious, he very, very talented, and he can help you go places. So Dane, it has been so wonderful to see you. I haven't gotten to see you in so long, and I can't wait for us to announce the next thing that we have coming up. I'm going to tease y'all a little bit. I don't know. It might be a week or two before we get to announce it. Not sure what it is, but we have something really, really cool coming up with a friend of mine, and it's going to be fun. Rachel, you have anything to say?
Not at all. Just thank you so much, Dane. This has been fun to talk arts and talk fun things with you. Thank you.
Oh, and by the way, y'all, I didn't even tell you, Dane's in his van. You have this van that you live in and work from, right?
Yeah, I don't know if you can see anything in the back. So just to add one more little thing about what I'm doing musically at this point is, like, we talked about when I was a kid where I saw myself musically, or like what kind of career.
Yeah.
I've always done the songwriting thing, but moving to LA, and like I've always been kind of forced to produce myself. And so through that process, I've learned the recording process to a degree that I never really imagined. So this van that I'm in, I bought a 2015 Chevy van, gutted it. There's a bed in the back. My surfboard's in the back. It's this basically an apartment on wheels. And
that's
so
awesome.
That's amazing.
I have an apartment in Alhambra, which is just a area just outside of the city. So I stay there, but I also camp a lot in the beach in Venice. And I do recording sessions in this van sometimes.
Awesome.
So I have artists that I work with out here that I will engineer their sessions and do vocal takes and stuff like that inside the van.
That's
so
cool.
Something that I never thought that I would be doing in music was production for other people. And so at this point, I'm making beats for rappers. I'm recording singer-songwriters with their guitars. I'm sending beats to other people all over the country and the world to try to get some stuff rolling. So
that's cool.
This has become the production mobile.
I love it. I love it. I remember last summer, I believe it was, when Annette, his mom, for y'all, those of y'all that don't know her, Annette told me that you were getting ready to buy a van, or you had just bought one, whenever it was. That I was like, yes, but I have to tease you for a minute. Do you realize you said van?
Van with 8 syllables in it?
I'm like, oh my God, Dane's been talking to me for too long.
I know, that's a problem.
You are going to go back and people are going to be like, what the hell?
I know. It happens every time I get on the phone with mom or have a conversation with anyone from back home. It slips back in there, and then the next one, people are like,
I just really, I heard it. I'm like, whoa, 2-syllable van.
Yeah. It happens sometimes.
So much. Dane,
I appreciate
I'm so happy that we got to talk with you. Thank you, Rachel.
Me too. Thank you so much, Rachel.
Oh, Thursday evening, my guest is Stacey Houston. I might be pronouncing her last name wrong. So Stacey, I'm just going to say that in case I'm pronouncing it wrong. I apologize if I am. She's the executive director of Kevin Bacon's 6 Degrees organization.
Okay.
Really, really cool
awesome
stuff they're doing, where celebrities, wherever they're going to be, they let them know, and then they hook them up to go visit nonprofits and other things to help amplify the message. She really, really cool girl, and she's from out there, Southern California, and she also started the TEDx up in Fairfax. So she's in Fairfax now. But that's going to be the show Thursday evening, y'all. Dane, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Lisa.
I love you. Thank you.
I love you too.
For being here.
Thank y'all so much. We'll
All
see you
right,
again
talk to
soon.
you later. Okay,
Thank y'all.
bye.
Bye. Bye.